Okay, we're going to continue reviewing. Negative 16x to the second power plus 32x equals 0. Okay, so you're solving for x. What's the highest power the x is to? It's to the second, so that means there's got to be two answers. So you have x second and you have x that's not to the second, meaning it's to the first. So you are factoring using your factoring properties. Prop stands for properties. Okay, so in factoring properties, we make sure we're equal to 0. We are. You can put check. Now you make a line and count the terms. You have x second and x, but there's no constants, so that leaves us with just two terms. So GCF is going to get the job done. That's it. Okay, you don't need to follow it up. So I do have x on the end of it's only two terms, and the last term's got x, so you need to place an x out there. And the first term's got a negative, so you place a negative in front of the slot. Now 16 and 32, you look on your multiplication table. 16, there's 16, 32, that's 16. Remember, start deep, work up. Okay, so this time you are dividing by x, so you're not going to make the slots in there. Don't make the slots if you're dividing by x, because you need to put that negative 16x up there. Okay, so that's going to be positive 1, and now I'm dividing x's, so you don't want a slot, because when you divide by x's, they change. So it's x, and then 32 divided by negative 16 is negative 2, but then we divide the x's. So if you have an x out there and you have to bring up the x to divide by, don't slot it, okay? That's if you're not putting an x. Okay, and that's good, so I bring my negative 16x over here, and I put the 1x minus 2 alongside it. That's equals 0. Now there's no garbage factors, okay? No waste factors. F1, F2, because they both have x. So negative 16x could equal 0, and then 1x minus 2 could equal 0. So you got multiplication, okay? Circle it. You have to divide by negative 16. 0 divided by negative 16 is 0, okay? Okay, then times 1. You can get rid, if it's times 1, you get rid of it, and you can just add the 2 and be done. So 0 plus 2 is 2. X is 2. Okay, next problem. X to the second power minus 4x minus 12 equals 0. So there's two answers, and I know this because the highest power is a second power. So we have x second and we have x to the first. So we are going to apply factoring properties. Okay, so your zero's there, but now you have the x second, the x, and the constant. Well, that's three terms, so that's going to be the GCF followed up with the table. Okay. Okay, remember, when you do after your table and you're ready to make parentheses, always put what A equals, okay? Okay, so I don't have x, okay? On the final term does not have x. The final slot, no x, so no x this time. No negative this time either, because we don't have a negative. Okay, 1, 4, and 12. Well, 1's the smallest, and the first time you come across 1 is the top row. If you just have a 1 out there with no x, with no negative, you put no. You're not going to do that step. Okay? So we do not cross this out. We keep it because we're not going to be doing that. So then the ABC comes from the top. Okay? You only cross it out if you actually go through at the GCF. Okay, so I take positive 1, okay, A times C, positive 1 times negative 12, and that's negative 12. So that signifies a mismatch, okay. So a mismatch means we have positive on one side, negative on the other. We start dividing, but before we divide, we need to know what we're going to add to. We are going to add with the add to the b, which is -4. So start dividing. 12 divided by 1 is 12. 1 plus -12 is -11, so it's not that. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 2 plus -6 is -4, so that's good. We're good. I put in my parentheses. You put your +2 with your -6. Now before you fill that in, you need to know what your a is. X second, and I go where the a, follow the a, it's 1. Okay? So x second is x times x. And then you put 1 in front of each of your x's. Now you can divide here. 1 and 2, okay, are just in 1's row. So dividing by 1's kind of silly, but I'll do it. It just stays the same. So I line that up over here. 1x plus 2. Remember, I didn't do the GCF. I put no. So if I put no, I don't parenthesize that. Okay, 1 and 6 would just be in the 1's row. Okay. Okay, so 1x minus 6. And then we put equals 0. And each one of those have f, so, or have x, so they're both useful in solving. There's no junk factors. 1x plus 2 could equal 0, or 1x minus 6 could equal 0. Okay. So if you have a multiplying of a times number of 1, get it out, and you just minus 2. Okay. So 0 minus 2 is -2. So there's your answer for x. Now again, we have a multiply, the times is by 1, so you get rid of it, and then plus 6, and then I'm at 6. So -2 and 6. Alright, moving right along. Next problem does not take long. 60x plus 30 equals 70x plus 45. You're solving for x. This is why you have to look. What's the highest power that your x is to? Well, they're not to any powers, so it'd be a first power. So there's only one answer, okay? So if there's one answer, you're not going to factor. You use your linear properties, okay, and that's how you solve it. Linear properties is when you make sure you have a single x. If there's two on opposite sides, you take out the smaller one. If they're on the same side, you make your v, okay? Get it to a single x. If they're on opposite sides, you add or subtract the smaller one. So this would be 30, then 10x plus 45. Then you make your wall. That's what linear properties mean. So times 10 plus 45. So I subtract 45 from the 30. That would take me to -15 equals 10 times x. And you get rid of your times 10 with a divide by 10. And in linear properties, if that's a 1, you can get rid of it, but it's not. Okay, it's a 10. So that's -1.5 and then x. There's your one answer. Okay, next problem, 8x to the second power plus 12x plus 4 equals 0. So there's two answers because x is not back to the second power, and there's also an x not to the second power, meaning it's to the first power. So we have to apply our factoring properties. Okay, so I check, I'm at 0. Remember, factoring properties, we go over here. You're equal to 0, check it. Now you count the terms by making slots. Okay, that's 3. So GCFT, remember to put A equals. Okay, so you know that's set up. So first, check out your GCF. Last term doesn't have x, so don't put x there. First term does not have a negative, don't put a negative. Now, 8, 12, and 4. Well, 4 is the smallest of the trio. So I go up 4, 8 and 12 are the other numbers. Well, there's 8, there's 12. They're all together in row 4. But we are not putting x with the 4. We're not putting a negative, okay? You're not putting an x because there's no x at the end. You're not putting a negative because there's no negative in front. That's why, okay? Now, up there is just a 4, okay? So we're not going to put an x underneath. There's no x with that 4 right there, so I just go 4. Now I do my slots because the x's are not going to change because I'm not dividing by x. I'm just dividing 8 by 4 is 2, and then x second stays. And then 3x, and then 1. Okay. Now, before you go to the t-table, there's 2 things you want to do because you got a bunch of stuff. Cross out the original. Bring that GCF 4 over here. Now I do my ABC, so now my ABC is ready to go. So I take 2 times 1. 2 times 1 is 2, and it's positive, okay? So that's a match. So just put 2 matching symbols. And we are adding to try to come to the B, which is positive 3. Now this isn't going to take long. 2 divided by 1 is 2. Now add those. Negative 3. Stop dividing to make it positive 3. Just make it positive 2, positive 1. Okay. Now 1 plus 2 is 3. So put in your positive 1, positive 2. Now your A, 2x second. Okay. So x second goes to x times x, always. And then you apply the 2 in front of each x, and then you try to divide down, okay? So 2 and 1, 1's the smaller of the pair, so that's just in 1's row, so you can divide by 1, but it's just the same, okay? So I put that 2x plus 1 on the line. If there's already something there, just put it after it. 2 and 2. Now, if the numbers are identical, you divide by 2. Okay, that's how that puts it into simplest form. 1x plus 1. Now this has no x. That's a garbage factor. So take out the trash factor. And then 2x plus 1 could equal 0, or 1x plus 1 could equal 0. Okay, so you have times 2. You got to take out your plus 1 first. That's negative 1. Divide by 2. This is not negative 2. You're taking a smaller number divided by a bigger number. You can put negative 0.5. Or if you want, you can click second PRB, and that's negative 1/2. Either this or this. I don't care which one. Either go with the decimal or the fraction. Now over here, times 1. If you have a times 1, you can get rid of it and just minus 1 and be done. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. So there you have it. Okay, now the story problem. A football is kicked off the ground with a velocity of 60 feet per second. After how many seconds will it land on the ground? So you make your opening box with the units, the feet, and the seconds. X is seconds, Y is feet. So per feet per second. Feet per second is 60 times X. Now this goes up and it comes down, okay? And it's pulled by the force of gravity, which is represented with the value negative 16 every time. Okay, what goes up comes down. So before the 60 feet per second, I don't see anything, so 0 feet, and I don't see a value after, so then it's 0 feet at the end. Okay, so slot it. Anytime you have to write an equation for that, you want to slot it. So this gravity, okay, goes in the x second slot. then the x slot is your 60. That's why it's 60 times x. Now, right there is 0. If you put 0 in a slot, that means the slot doesn't exist. Okay, so get it out of there. And then this 0 feet at the end, since feet is y, it goes in for y. So you have negative 16x to the second power plus 60x equals 0. Now you solve it. It's no longer a story problem. So there's two answers. You have x to the second, and you have the x naught to the second. So you have to apply your factoring properties. Okay? Factoring. All right, so you check it. So drawing your slots, that's just two of them. So GCF is all I have to do to get my parentheses. Okay, now the last of the terms has x. The first of the terms does have that negative. Okay, now you look up 16 and 60. So there's 16, but no 60. Where's 16 again? There's 16, no 60. Keep looking, okay? There's 16, and there's 60, so it would be 4. With the negative with the x. So then you go up and divide by negative 4x. And you are dividing by x here, so don't slot it, because that changes. Because we know that's 4. X times x second times x makes that just an x. 60 divided by negative 4 is negative 15, and then the x divided by the x there just cancels, okay? And now we're where we need to be, okay? So, negative 4x, and then put the 4x minus the 15 right next to it. So both of them have x, there's no trash factors. So then negative 4x could equal 0, or 4x minus 15 could equal 0. So you divide by negative 4, that's 0, okay? Because it's at 0 seconds right there, but that's not the answer really. Then you plus 15. Then you divide by 4. 15 divided by 4 is 3.75. You can write that if you want to take after you get 3.75, you want to make it into a fraction with the second PRB key, 3 3/4. Be my guess, either the decimal or the fraction, but the higher answer is the legit one.